You see that up there in the corner? Just a big puddle of gold on the edge there. That's really cool.
How does a 20-something miner become the undisputed king of the Klondike? He does it by risking it all and finding something nobody else even knew existed. Parker Schnabel stumbled upon a relic of the past. An old wash plant so full of missed gold that it nearly doubled his season's haul, proving that sometimes the biggest treasures are hidden in plain sight. But he was about to learn a brutal lesson. A discovery this big doesn't just make you a king, it makes you a target. The $15 million all-in bet. You have to understand what Parker Schnabel did was pure madness. In the world of gold mining, you play it safe, you make smart bets, and you live to fight another season. But Parker, driven by a hunger that left his rivals in the dust, threw the rulebook into a frozen creek. He pushed all his chips to the center of the table, spending an insane $15 million on a massive piece of land known as Dominion Creek. This wasn't just buying a claim, this was buying an empire, a sprawling chunk of the Yukon rumored to hold legendary deposits of gold. But rumors don't pay the bills. The truth is, it was a high-stakes, all-in kind of bet that could either cement his legacy or bankrupt him completely, sending him home with nothing but dirt under his fingernails. He was living by the words of hockey great Wayne Gretzky, a quote he often repeated, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." This was the biggest shot of his life. To even begin to justify the price tag, Parker set a goal that sounded almost impossible.
But right now, it's an added cost. And, it's not ready to be sleuthed, but we can make it ready with a bit of ripping.
He declared to his crew and to the world that he would pull 5,000 ounces of gold from the ground in a single brutal mining season. To put that in perspective, that's over 300 pounds of pure gold. At today's prices, you're talking about a staggering $10 million. It was a number designed to make a statement. The pressure was immediate and crushing. Every single day at Dominion Creek felt like a battle for survival. The financial clock was ticking so loud it was deafening. The cost of fuel alone for his fleet of giant machines was astronomical, easily running into the tens of thousands of dollars every single day. Payroll for his loyal but exhausted crew was a constant drain. Any breakdown, any delay wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a financial catastrophe, pushing his dream further and further away. The land itself fought back with a vengeance. They hit patches of frozen earth, permafrost so hard it could shatter the steel teeth of an excavator bucket. They dug through acres of worthless rock, watching the fuel burn while finding nothing. The hope that bloomed one day with a good cleanup would be crushed by a week of finding next to nothing. A soul-destroying cycle that could break even the toughest miner. The team was in a non-stop race against the clock, against the weather, and against their own bone-deep tiredness.
I expect a bit of calibration problems on this ground of our process and figuring out the most efficient way of doing things, right? I expect those problems.
This kind of operation walked a razor's edge between spectacular success and total ruin. What nobody watching on TV really sees is the quiet desperation, the constant stress of knowing that one major mechanical failure, one bad decision, could cause the entire $15 million house of cards to collapse. The pressure was mounting, the machines were straining, and then, in a forgotten corner of the wilderness, a chance encounter with a piece of rusting junk would change everything. But finding a ghost from the past was just the beginning. Parker was about to discover that this relic was hiding a secret far richer and more dangerous than he could ever imagine. Just when things felt like they were at a breaking point, a non-stop grind of mechanical failures and deep, nagging uncertainty, Parker Schnabel stumbled upon something that would not only change his season, but might just change his entire life. It was like finding a ghost. There, half swallowed by moss, dirt, and time, was an enormous abandoned machine called a trommel. It was a relic from a time long past, a massive rusting steel tube covered in decades of grime and shrouded by a thick blanket of overgrown plants.
The amount of hours we run, you need something that's really easy to work on.
Yeah.
And like the inside, the barrel of this is all custom. And I think you'd have a hard time, like it'd be a full-time job for somebody.
It looked like it hadn't been touched in a lifetime, a forgotten monument to a failed dream. Its sheer size was enough to make you stop and stare. This was no ordinary piece of equipment, it was a brute, a monster built for one thing: high-volume mining. You see, back in its prime, this trommel would have churned through tons and tons of pay dirt every single day. Its huge rotating drum would tumble rocks, dirt, and gravel, using water to separate the heavier gold from the worthless material. But here's the kicker, the secret that had been sitting right here in plain sight for all these years. The technology of that era was known to be incredibly inefficient. Much of the finer, smaller gold, the stuff that really adds up, would have slipped right through the cracks, literally washed away with the leftover tailings. What nobody talks about are the whispers, the rumors. Stories about this forgotten place had floated around the old-timers in the Klondike for years. Local legends, told like ghost stories over campfires, claimed the giant trommel was part of a huge, once-rich operation that was mysteriously and suddenly abandoned. Maybe the company went bust. Maybe they hit a wall of permafrost they couldn't break through. Or maybe, as some of the darker tales went, something terrible happened out there in the isolated wilderness. The legend said the piles of dirt the old miners left behind were still full of gold. Pay dirt so rich it was a crime it had been left to rot. But no one had ever dared to check. The claim was too remote, the machine too massive to move or fix. It was a fool's errand. Until now. Parker, guided by that special instinct for gold that separates the good miners from the great ones, brushed off the decades of decay.
I think this run was mostly ditches, wasn't it?
Yeah. Ditch and gravel.
If that's a sign of what's to come, then we're in the right spot.
He took a careful look inside the giant drum, shining a flashlight into the dark, musty interior. And then he saw it, a faint glint of something shiny, something yellow. It stopped him dead in his tracks. His heart pounded in his chest. It was a puddle of gold right there on the edge of the rusted steel. This wasn't just an old machine, it was a treasure chest, a time capsule filled with riches. The find was incredible, a shocking jolt of luck when he needed it most. But as Parker stood there staring at the gold, he couldn't have known what the ghost ship truly was. It was a map pointing the way to a much bigger prize and a direct conflict with the most powerful forces in the Yukon. Resurrection of a rusting titan. Finding a machine full of gold is one thing, but bringing that multi-ton, rust-welded beast back from the dead was a whole different kind of war. This wasn't just a repair job, it was a full-blown resurrection, a monumental battle against rust, time, and decay that would test Parker's team to its absolute limit. The first challenge was just getting to the thing. They had to cut a path through the dense wilderness to even bring their heavy equipment close. Then came the almost impossible task of moving the giant machine to a spot where they could actually work on it. Every bolt was seized with rust. Every metal plate was warped by decades of freezing and thawing. The team worked with a frantic energy. This was a project born of pure obsession. They knew, with a gut feeling that burned in their chests, that the potential reward was worth the insane effort. They had to carefully repair or completely replace countless parts, from giant gears that looked like something out of a medieval torture device to the main steel drum itself, which was pitted with holes. Every single weld had to be perfect, every replacement part engineered to withstand the brutal forces of a running wash plant. And just when you thought it couldn't get any crazier, they found something else. As they cleared the area around the trommel, they uncovered a massive untouched pile of dirt right next to it. This was it. The pay dirt the original miners had dug up but never gotten the chance to process. It was the stuff of legend. Parker grabbed a gold pan. His hands were shaking slightly as he took a sample from the pile. He swirled the dirt in water, his eyes locked on the bottom of the pan. As the lighter sand washed away, the bottom of the pan began to glitter.
That's wild. There's a start. We're on the board, Mitch.
Well, that's an awesome pan.
Then it was covered. The number of golden flakes in that single pan was far, far higher than anything they were finding in their main operation at Dominion Creek. It wasn't just promising, it was a certified grade A jackpot. This discovery sent a shockwave of electricity through the crew. They immediately set up a temporary processing plant right there on site. A Frankenstein's monster of modern sluice boxes and pumps jury-rigged to serve their purpose. They had to make sure not a single precious particle of gold was missed. Parker knew the stakes were sky high. He later said, "There's a lot of pressure on revenue right now, but with 2 plants running, you know we have a shot." The results were beyond their wildest dreams. The first cleanups were stunning. Gold poured out of the sluices. The weigh-ins at the end of each day became moments of celebration and disbelief. The gold just kept adding up, the total value quickly and unbelievably climbing into the hundreds of thousands and then past $1 million, then $2 million. They had hit the mother lode. They had resurrected a titan, and it was rewarding them with a river of gold. But this incredible wealth was like a beacon in the dark, and news this big travels fast in the Klondike. Parker's amazing discovery was no longer a secret, and he was about to learn that finding a fortune attracts a very dangerous kind of attention. While the resurrected trommel was busy spitting out a fortune, Parker's team made another discovery that was, in its own way, even more valuable than the gold itself. Tucked away in a rusted-out tool locker near the old machine, they found a collection of oil-stained, water-damaged logbooks and papers. At first, they looked like garbage, but with some careful work, they uncovered a story. These weren't just maintenance records, they were a map. The old records showed that the ghost trommel hadn't just worked in this one spot. It had been part of a much larger mining plan, moved from hotspot to hotspot across the region. The faded pages listed coordinates, crude hand-drawn maps, and notes about gold quality from places with names like Ruby Creek and Last Chance Gully. The numbers scrawled in the margins told a clear story. These were areas that had produced huge amounts of gold long ago. It was a treasure map created by ghosts leading the way to more gold, more opportunities, and maybe even bigger discoveries. For Parker, this changed the entire game. His lucky find wasn't just a one-off jackpot. It was a key, a clue that could unlock a whole network of forgotten gold claims. But here's the thing about the Klondike. There are no secrets. Word of Parker's spectacular find spread like wildfire. Truckers, suppliers, other miners, everyone was talking about the kid who found the abandoned trommel. And that kind of talk reaches the ears of the powerful. Specifically, it reached the ears of Tony Beets, the legendary hard-nosed mining veteran known as the Viking. Truth be told, there's always been a fierce rivalry between Parker and Tony. It's the young gun versus the old master. They've clashed over land, equipment, and pride for years. Tony, who owns huge swaths of land himself, would have known the legends of the abandoned claims. News that Parker had not only found one, but was now pulling millions out of it would have been a direct challenge. Worse yet, the discovery of the logbooks meant Parker now had a map to other potential honey holes, some of which might even be on land Tony controlled or had his eye on. The situation became incredibly tense. Suddenly, Parker wasn't just fighting the frozen ground, he was looking over his shoulder. The discovery had put a giant target on his back. Other miners, smelling money, reportedly started snooping around his claims. The friendly competition of the Klondike was threatening to turn into something far more serious. He had found the gold, but now he had to defend it. The ghost map in his hands was priceless, but it was also a liability, a source of conflict that could spark a war over land and legacy. Parker was on his way to smashing his 5,000-ounce goal, but he was also heading straight into a storm of jealousy and rivalry that could make his record-breaking season his last. The roar of the resurrected trommel became the soundtrack to a season for the history books. Combined with the steady production from his main plant at Dominion Creek, the gold started piling up at a rate that was simply unheard of. The daily weigh-ins became legendary. Jars filled with gleaming gold nuggets and fine dust lined the shelves of the gold room, a testament to the crew's relentless work and Parker's insane gamble. They didn't just hit their 5,000-ounce goal, they obliterated it.
The good part and the cool part is we broke 5,000 ounces for the season.
The final tally was mind-boggling, reportedly soaring past 8,000 ounces of gold. That's nearly double the original, seemingly impossible target. At a conservative price, you are looking at a gross value well over $15 million, maybe even approaching $16 million. In one single brutal season, Parker had not only paid for his entire $15 million land investment.
Thank you. Congratulations.
So how is this going to work then?
I'm going to get my toothbrush and leave.
But it also banked a handsome profit. He had crowned himself the new, undisputed king of the Klondike. Parker's incredible season made him the undisputed king. But did skill earn his crown, or was it just blind luck? Let us know below. Like and subscribe for more.